Hello, thanks for joining me. So much stuff has been going on. I have a lot of videos that I could make, but what I want to focus on right now, because I'm really excited about it, is NES versus 7800. Battle of the Systems. I just got my 7800 modded, you can see here, so it has S-video and AV outs. I can't get the AV to work with my capture card for some reason. I don't know why, but the S-video does work. So we're going to be getting an S-video freed from the 7800, just AV from the NES. You may not have realized, but there are quite a number of games actually that came out on both the NES and the 7800. So I want to take a look at some of these and compare some of them to each other. I have a lot of nostalgia with the 7800. So the games that I'm going to be comparing are ones that are sort of paint the 7800 in a positive light. And I think it might surprise some people to really see how well it can stand up versus the NES. Yeah, I would never suggest that it has any games that are really of the caliber of things like Super Mario Brothers and Metroid and Legend of Zelda and things like that in terms of the scope of the games and sort of what they did for home console gaming or how they affected the industry or any of that stuff. And I'd like to take a look at some of the games that appeared on both systems, so let's get started. So first up we have Donkey Kong. This is on the NES. We'll see it on the 7800 in just a moment. Take a moment to just listen to the sound effects and music on this. Now, you may or may not know, but the Atari 7800, for its built-in sound, was actually the Atari 2600 sound chip. This was to preserve backward compatibility with the 2600. Now, the plan was to have the option of putting a sound chip into the games, and that is something that the developers were able to do. But they'd planned to mass-produce a cheaper version of the Pokey sound chip that was used in some Atari arcade games for use in the 7800. It was going to be called the Gumby chip, I believe. You might see where that comes from. But they never did manufacture that. So most 7800 games do not have better than 2600 sound. So take note of the aspect ratio of the screen here. I believe that the Atari 7800 pixels were actually wider than they are tall. So here's the NES version to the 7800. It looks a little wider and more squat, but I believe this is a comparable experience between the two systems. I would say in this case the NES may have the edge with this first-party Nintendo game. Now here's a game that is not a first-party Nintendo game. This is Winter Games by Epix. This is the NES version with the intro here. Take particular note of the animation on the doves in the sky. And here's the 7800 version. Definitely a smaller sprite. It's not as cartoony, maybe a little bit less friendly looking. Interesting is sort of really smooth animation on the birds there. So we've got four options. We're going to choose Hot Dog Aerials. This is the NES version. So there we go, we got a 6.5. Now this is the 7800 version. It actually has different options. We have Biathlon and the Ski Jump. So let's go ahead and try that. And we made it. Here we get the stats on a separate screen. I don't even know that the points don't even really match up, but here we see some shots comparing the two again. And check out the town here versus the town on the 7800. I don't see why they couldn't have done something more like that on the NES, but it looks really nice on the 7800 version. Here's a game that I think is clearly better on the 7800. Take a look here at the NES version of Xevious. Now note how the backgrounds, everything looks sort of like it was cut out of colored construction paper. It's a very odd look for an NES game. I don't know that I've seen many games that have this type of style. A lot of them look blockier, where everything kind of takes on a block shape. Here's Xevious on the Atari 7800. Very nice title screen, you might notice. And this may be up to interpretation and personal preference, but I think just looking at this myself, this looks like, I would say, clearly the better, just nicer looking version of the game. And with a game like this in particular, the sound effects I think are actually pretty comparable between the NES and the 7800, even with the sound chip from the 2600. Next up is Ikari Warriors on the NES. It's the plane crash at the beginning. I was never a huge Ikari Warriors fan, but always a fun two-player game that you can play with a friend. I definitely played this in the arcade once or twice. I believe this might have also had the rotary control, which was pretty interesting. So here's the 7800 version. I've just picked single player. So check out this plane in comparison to the other one. Pretty cool looking. Now at first glance, you might think that the 7800 version is clearly not as good looking as the NES version, and you know, I think that that can be argued. In particular, look at these grenades. They don't even really have a clear outline. There's sort of like a little white skeleton. It's almost like you're throwing fish bones or something. But here we are back to the NES version. If you compare the arcade to the NES version and the 7800 version, it actually seems like the 7800 version is more accurate to the arcade, and I think was trying to maybe better, you know, trying harder to capture that that exact look. And take a look here. We have the tanks again. We had that fashionable pink tank in the NES. Here it's more of a normal color. I'm also wondering if the 7800 doesn't also have to compensate for that wide pixel issue, which might be why we get somewhat of a smaller playable area on the 7800 version. There could be certainly other reasons for that as well. So Ikari Warriors on the NES and the 7800, I will leave it up to you as to which one you think is the better home console version of the two. Next up we have Xenophobe, and this is a game that I think is clearly better on the Atari 7800. And these things always come with caveats. Here we have 3 selectable playable characters for the NES version of Xenophobe. On the Atari 7800 there is only one, so you don't get to select a character at all, there's only one character. So definitely advantages and drawbacks to each version, and that extends to a lot of the games that I've shown and a lot of the ones that I haven't shown. So I actually spent a lot of time playing the 7800 version, of course, of this game back in the day. You're basically just going through screens of a ship, different floors, and in each room you have to fight off different aliens, and you can collect items, and then you get warped out of the ship if you have to self-destruct it because the aliens have overrun everything. And this is one of those games you can also play 2-player. You're meant to both be able to be on the screen at the same time, hence the split screen. So here we have the title screen. Check that out on the 7800. Very, very nice looking compared to the NES version. And really the entire thing, it's head and shoulders above, I think, in terms of the graphics. I think just look way better. Again, this is one of those ones where I don't think the sound matters very much. There's really no music during this right now, and just simple sound effects. So take a look at some of those things again, compare the two title screens side by side. Now, this is the first set of games that I'm going to compare that aren't actually, you know, based on the exact same game. But I think when you see the Atari 7800 game, you might question whether they are not based on the same game, because they really are. But this is a classic on the NES, Operation Wolf. I remember playing this back in the day. I put a lot of hours into this with friends. And here's a really cool game for the 7800. This is called Alien Brigade. And this was a late release for the 7800, and I really think this, along with the next game that I'm going to show in particular, showcase a lot of the potential that the 7800 had. Again, this is just the regular 2600 sound, but I think they do good with it. The graphics in this, I think, in particular, are quite good. So here you're basically playing a version of Operation Wolf with aliens, and not only that, but just, you know, it's gory. Like, check out the blood and everything that you get when you shoot some of these people and aliens. I mean, they're people that have been taken over by aliens, I think is the thing. But all the vehicles, the helicopters, the tanks, the people, I think everything looks really good in this. Let's take a look at Operation Wolf again here in just a sec, and we can compare. So here we have a helicopter and an armored vehicle. Check out the background. There's the tank in the 7800. Take a look at those trees, the fence. You know, and take a look here. Seems like worlds of difference, and Alien Brigade on the 7800 is quite fun as well. I've gotten to some of the later levels, and it remains fun. Very cool game. Now, here we have a good pedigree, Lucas Games. Rest in peace. Now listen to this music here, and let this blow your mind on the 7800. So this is a rare example, I'm only showing the 7800 version of this, where they actually did go to the expense of using the arcade chip, sound chip, in the game cartridge for Balblazer. So you get that arcade quality sound on the 7800, and it makes a world of difference. Can you just imagine if you had that sound chip in every game for the Atari 7800? You don't have to imagine, at least in this case, Commando. Let's take a listen to the music for the NES version. And here's the 7800 version with the better sound chip. Pretty rockin' tunes there, isn't it? I would encourage you to go back and listen to the NES version and then come back and listen to this one. I really think this is a better version of this opening theme song. So now we're back to the NES version here for the opening. Now, I'm not going to believe that this was down to anything other than probably a lazy port and some bad programming, but the NES version really, we have tons of flicker. Take a look at the trees, the little blocks of grass. Now this is the 7800 version. And I have to apologize, this stereo mod on my 7800, it seems, especially in this game, to have imbalanced sound between the simulated stereo of the right and the left, so it really downplays the music in this, which is a shame, because if you're playing it on a regular unadulterated 7800, it sounds fantastic. So just imagine that the sound effects and the music are much more equal. I'll let you listen to it in a minute when I'm not talking over the whole clip. So again, we have the NES version here. We've got the little motorcycle scene. And here it is in the 7800. I'll shut up. So just check out the wall in this and the motorcycle. Now we're back to the NES version here. This is at the end of the level. Now, to the NES version's credit, it is fast-paced. There are a lot of enemies running around, so your movement speed of yourself and the enemies is a bit faster. But having played both versions, I have to say the Atari 7800 version is a ton of fun. I really think it stands as what is probably the best single game on the system in terms of playability, the sound, the graphics, and everything. I think it really comes together very well. This is the NES version of when you get to the end of the stage, and the 7800 version is here. So for each person, I think which of these systems wins really comes down to which of the systems you guys are nostalgic for. I mean, which of these is better to you? And for me, that's going to be the 7800 every time, just because of the nostalgia around it. Certainly, like I said with the caveats in the beginning about the NES, I love the NES and it was hugely important, but I think the 7800 had a lot of potential, and I think we can see that from some of these games, some of these ports on the system that were, I think a couple of them inarguably were better on the 7800. I think they're more similar than people realize in terms of the system architecture, even just the processor, the main CPU in each of these is based on the exact same architecture. They actually run at the same clock speed. So I might include a little bit more technical information. You can check the description for that. Hopefully you've been reading the annotations as we've gone through this. But thank you very much for watching. I'm going to do some more videos on the 7800. I want to go over some of my favorite games on the system, and you know, just give it a little bit more love. We're gonna leave you with the intro music from Commando. Hope that you enjoy it, and I'll catch you again next time. Thanks for watching.